Hey guys, Dino here, back with Dead Space 2 Part 12. So, I don't really know where we're at. To be honest, I'm recording most of these after I get off my night shift, so I'm usually a little out of it. I actually just did a report on fatigue, and I think it's around 24 hours where you have the equivalent of a 0.10 blood alcohol content, so definitely feel like I've had a few beers at this point. I decided to leave in most of these inventory screens and the save spots. The save spots, I don't know, the editing really isn't taking out a whole lot. It's kind of annoying, and I keep getting people requesting to see the inventory. So yeah, I guess it kind of kills two birds with one stone, makes it a little faster and easier for me to edit, and sounds like you guys like to see it, so yay for me. Yeah, that's kind of weird. These rooms, even though they're not very frequent, are absolute safe haven, because I don't think anything can break into them. They might be able to come in through the ceiling, otherwise they just have to funnel right through like that. Yeah, doesn't get much easier than that. I think too, what I've decided is, God, I'm just wasting ammo like it's nobody's business. I'm going to try to answer your guys' comments in the videos that I'm doing, and unless otherwise stated, I think I'm going to try to do this for just about all the videos. I'm actually getting more and more subscribers every day. I don't have a ton of you guys yet. I think it's a little over 1,500, 1,600, something like that. So it's definitely hard to answer everybody individually. I just don't have the time. But if I'm sitting down to do a 30-minute commentary, I have plenty of time to do it. So try to get to most of your questions while getting through these videos. I had a few people ask something about WoW. It's actually a little bit embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to say that I played it. I don't know. I don't know if it's silly. I guess I see, maybe because I've always enjoyed them, but I just don't equate WoW players with lots of skill, although I'll come back and talk about that in a few minutes. I guess I don't know, I kind of equate, my first thought is that I equate first-person shooters with the most amount of skill, and that's not necessarily correct, although I feel like it can be a bit of a moot point. I played on and off for a while, and most recently here, Bruce and I got into it. I don't want to say pretty hard, but pretty heavily. Yeah, once again, a little bit embarrassing. We made use of the, what do you call it, the fucking create a friend, invite a friend, whatever the fuck it is, and we basically power leveled quite a few guys. I think I had every single class at 80 or above, so I definitely have a fair amount of experience with the game. WoW is interesting because, like I said, my first thought is that MMO players don't necessarily have experience, but in my experience playing games like Left 4 Dead, where I mentioned it a little bit yesterday, where Left 4 Dead and, say, Team Fortress 2 are games that heavily emphasize your team and greatly de-emphasize the individual. So what happens is you're only basically as good as the weakest link on your team. There's really no way to make up for somebody who's not pulling their own weight. Whereas, say, I came from, I don't know, I got extremely competitive with Battlefield 1942, and a great team counted for a whole lot, but so did a great player. So, in Left 4 Dead, you know, there's no way to quad cap somebody if you don't have all four guys on the same page at the same time. And even though quad camping is probably the most difficult thing to pull off, every single attack that you do is coordinated, and it simply does not work if you don't have somebody going in, running distraction, boomer exploding, you know, dudes jumping on top of them after that, and you know, vice versa. When you're on survivors, all 4 guys sticking together, basically meleeing constantly. They have a preset plan, know where they're going, etc., etc. You just can't do it unless all 4 guys are on the same page. So the reason why I'm launching in all of that after I said a bit about MMOs is simply because one of the best teams that I ran into in Left 4 Dead actually came from MMOs. They met each other playing, I think, World of Warcraft. I think the reason why they were so good at Left 4 Dead is because the actual skill involved in the game, I won't say there's not a lot of skill involved in the game, but after you've played it, it's the same level every time. You know, there's no inventing anything on the fly. You basically, you pounce on almost the same spots every time as when you're infected. So what it ends up boiling down to is just like this very, very fine-tuning your attacks and all going on the same, you know, 1, 2, 3, go, all going at the same time and pulling them off, you know, effortlessly. And it's not easy to do, but because of the way that combat or raiding takes place in a game like WoW, I mean, that's all there is to WoW. That's all there is to it. It's basically just a numbers game. So anyway, those guys had amazing team coordination, and they did really well. I've been debating somebody on my my website too for the last few days about the different players in Battlefield 3, and basically I'm saying that 64 players is too many. So I'll get more on that later, but one of the suggestions he's talking about is basically, he mentioned matchmaking, and well, I'll go into the details later of our little chat that we've been having, but matchmaking, I think, is something that is a fantastic idea on paper, and I think true matchmaking is about the only way we've been trying to figure out how to satisfy both casual and competitive gamers. It's about the only way that you can make that happen, but I think that true matchmaking is almost impossible to do. I've seen a lot of the variables that go into play in choosing the matchmaking for Left 4 Dead. As a result of playing games online for a very, very, very long time, I don't know, I have a variety of the guys that I have played with are developers for Valve, Blizzard, PopCap, all sorts of different game companies, and it's great insight into exactly what goes into their games. And Valve doesn't really hide a whole lot behind the scenes, but it's interesting having that developer insight, and you know, it sounds like they do their best. And one of the problems with a super team-based game like Team Fortress 2 or especially Left 4 Dead is that nobody wants to play if the other team's going to be better. There's no incentive to stay there. If you get your ass kicked round 1, there's no reason to stay there for the next 4 to 5 rounds and get your teeth kicked in. Like, it's no fun for the guys that are winning, and it's no fun for the guys that are losing. There's just no reason to do it, and it's not fun to play with guys who don't know what they're doing. So it just creates this really odd scenario where, like, almost in order to play this game and to play it, even have a chance of mildly succeeding at it, you need 3 dudes who you're good buddies with, who are all excellent at video games. Left 4 Dead has a huge problem with people leaving constantly. You can't get people to stay in. And, you know, why should you? If you're getting your ass kicked, why wouldn't you just leave and make another game where you have a better chance of succeeding? So, I think matchmaking is something I would love to see more of in the future. But unfortunately, I think it's something that's really, really hard to come by. Kind of like the whole idea of AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, every single game for the last 20 years has touted better and better artificial intelligence. And there hasn't been an increase in artificial intelligence in video games for God knows how long. This is definitely a cheap way to do this level. Yeah, I mean, you essentially, game difficulty still, I mean, it's 2011, game difficulty still boils down to, funny to watch them just kill themselves trying to get to me. Game difficulty essentially boils down to, you know, more hit points, they hit harder, and they move faster, and, you know, some of those things aren't bad, but like ramping those up to an absurd amount just make the game tedious and not fun. Like you end up just kiting longer and harder, and I don't know. To me, that's not enjoyable. What I would love to see is guys that, you know, start employing team tactics and things like that. Even basics like guys that are melee and dudes that are range create problems. But like that being said, you can, I don't know, you can tend to always deal with them in really cheesy ways. If they do cheap tactics, like, you know, the same guys are trying to, if they're so effective, basically what I'm trying to say, if they're really effective with their tactics, basically what ends up happening is you can almost always beat CPU players every time by cheesing your way through it, which essentially means setting up ambushes in one form or another. Perfect Dark for the Nintendo 64 was a great example. Like you had Perfect Sims and Dark Sims, and I think the Dark Sims were able to teleport. I can't remember, the game is kind of old now. But essentially they moved through the level at fucking lightning fast speeds, plus their accuracy was perfect. The moment they saw you, you were dead instantly. They were headshotting you from a mile away. There's no way you could even hope to compare to them. They were the quintessential apex of a first-person shooter master, right? So what it boiled down to, though, is like, you're like, okay, well, I can't fucking beat these guys, like going toe-to-toe. So you just fucking run around, throw a laptop gun around the corner, or an explosive gun or something like that, and they run by and kill themselves. And you can still go 10-0 against the hardest sims in the game, but you just cheese your way through it, and at the end of the day, you really don't feel like you've accomplished a whole lot. So I think, you know, game balance is tough, and I've kind of gone off on a tangent. But, I don't even remember where the fuck I started on this. Just the whole idea of MMO skill versus FPS skill. I think it's just a really, really fascinating, fascinating debate, and really cool talking point. I think my complaint, and I'll just say it first, my complaint about games right now for the last 3-4 years, 5 years maybe, is that games, so what happened initially is where FPS started off, they started off in this very sort of individual first-person shooter, TDM, team deathmatch mode, which Quake basically popularized. And it's a mode that you more or less see similar versions of today, but what it boiled down to was basically dudes were in a free-for-all on a level, a variety of power-ups and things like that were scattered around. So the best players had not only the levels memorized, but all the power-ups and things like that were memorized as well. So you have a lockdown on all those power-ups, you have this big skill advantage, or not skill advantage, this big power advantage. Anyway, but this all took place one-on-one. Like the whole concept of anything team was fairly foreign. Essentially you get a very, very, very similar TDM style matchup now with COD, where it's still frequently every man for themselves, but even when it's two, you know, one team versus another team, if you don't have a conquest style game, it's still all about the points, and with player opponents, you can't set up these kill zone ambushes that people just funnel through. Well, you can if they're completely retarded, I guess, but it just doesn't work as well. So essentially, I guess, so part of the reason why games are going the way they are today is because when somebody would dominate in a game like Quake, and there really wasn't a whole lot you could do to compete with them on a skill level, so kind of the response to that, as well as a variety of other factors too, like it's been a great business decision to remake the same COD game, you know, less than a year later every single year, is to basically lower the skill bar to such an extent that it's no longer possible for any one person to dominate. Like an analogy for this, I think it's the analogy I used on the forums too, is, you know, you take a guy like Shaun White, you know, well, he's the best snowboarder in the world for a lot of different reasons, but if people bitch that he was the best snowboarder in the world, and the only way to compete with him is to, say, lower the half pipe height from, say, whatever it is, 15 feet down to 3 feet, like you just destroyed any skill potential, but now it's more fair for everybody, I guess. And that to me is kind of where games have gone. You know, in COD it's possible for anybody to go on this amazing kill streak and go 20, 30, or 40-0. And that's essentially why they play the game. They turn it on in hopes that, you know, this might be their lucky game and get a great kill streak. Chances are, you know, 99 times out of 100 they're going to be ass and continue to instantly respawn in and chuck their frag X3 and say fuck it. But that's kind of where we're at today, and people really seem to enjoy that. And so then the dilemma becomes, how do you make a game that caters to both competitive gamers and casual gamers? And casual gamers are by far the largest percentage of the market today. I understand that. It makes sense. That's why COD is more and more successful every year. But one of the ways around that is potentially to go with matchmaking software, but like I said, it's really difficult to make great matchmaking software. So, but it also, like I said, also depends on your game type. So if you have the super team-based game, chances are it's going to be infinitely difficult to make your matchmaking software. I still can't believe that just happened. That was really frustrating, extremely embarrassing. I feel like every time I'm in this game I'm basically losing subscribers. But at this point in the game I just don't have the heart to do this level all over again. Yeah, I guess I should say it too. I mean, I'm definitely not going through this game with my quote-unquote try-hard pants on. Copyright XCal, but yeah, it's embarrassing to get hit at all. Anyway, so like I said, I don't think you can really matchmake something that is so dependent on teammates, but I think game companies realized several years ago, a good 5 years ago, that making a game too heavily dependent on the individual is a good way to scare a lot of people off. So I don't really know what is going to be the final solution to this. I think eventually people will get tired of this skill potential that is over their heads, skill ceiling rather, which essentially limits the potential of any one player. In order for everyone to basically quote-unquote have fun, you cater to the lowest common denominator, and to me I don't understand how that's fun for anyone, because everyone has, when everybody is capable of being the best at something, like being the best doesn't mean anything. You know, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I have a hard time, I guess, understanding why people seem to enjoy the games they do. But they enjoy them because they are casual and they don't really care. But at the same time, like I said, it destroys the game for anybody with any hopes of, say, being consistently good or who has an above average skill level. When I played, say, the game Battlefield 42, Um, 9 times out of 10, when I died, it was my fault. I knew why I died. It was because I got greedy. I was an idiot. I ran in there doing something stupid. And chances are, when you load up COD today and you die, and the kill cam shows, you know, some guy with an MG camping in a corner, spraying some other dude, and his bullets went through that guy and hit you. He didn't even know you were there. Or some random fucking grenade. There's just so much random chaos. Being consistently good is almost out of the question. And not just that, but like the whole idea of a good KDR is also nearly impossible to do. You know, I think back in 42, I mean, my KDRs, I would go ballistic if I died more than, say, 2 or 3 times around as anything. Especially as time went on, it was almost embarrassing not to go flawless the entire round. It was a given, you know, if I died once or twice, it's okay. But if I died more than that, you know, it was embarrassing. I would, you know, I wouldn't want people to see that. I want to be associated with somebody who dies more than twice in a round, who's still managing like between a 6 to fucking 8 KDR, basically, easy. It wasn't uncommon to load up, you know, especially if you flew a plane or were in a chopper or something, and get 30, 40 fucking kills and not die. It wasn't the exception. It was the exception if that didn't happen, and that was only if you were ball-bangingly fucking good. But it's very, very difficult to separate the ball bangers now from the average Joes because, like I said, there's that skill ceiling, that skill potential that's equally limited for everyone. It's not that you can't have a great round, it's that you can't have a consistently great round after round after round, and oftentimes when you die, you can't avoid it. It comes from things like guns that do much more damage. They kill very, very fast. It's nearly impossible to react to being shot. The levels themselves are filled with niches and holes to kill people from. It's impossible to walk around and look at all of them, right? Like, you just can't do it. There's no way to handle all that information at once. And the other problem is simply the game type. So a team deathmatch style game, even if it is one team versus the other team, still rewards people for camping, essentially. It's not until you get a conquest style game that has different points around a map, and when those points are revolvingly captured and taken back, and the action is taking place on all different places of that map, it eliminates camping because there's no incentive to do so. I mean, you can definitely do it, but you're not going to get... So, yeah, I mean, it's brilliant because it inadvertently basically solves a lot of the problems that people bitch about, even though that's not its focus. It also brings this whole nother element in that's really not there. It's, you know, brings this tactical element in as well. There's more than just simply getting kills. If you just sit around at a point trying to grab kills all day long, it's, Jesus Christ, I am terrible. Oh, surprise. Anyway, so some really, really interesting ways to go with that. I think one of my big reasons wanting to do this stuff, I've mentioned it a few times before, is wanting to get people's feedback on why they do the things they do. And I think ultimately, you know, perhaps even trying to, I don't want to say educate people, but I mean, that's kind of the idea, is like talk to them about why I enjoy the games that I do and some of the problems that I see and why I think they are problems, and, you know, hopefully changing some people's minds, or giving them not even changing their minds, but just giving them different perspective through which to think about their games. And, you know, hopefully if enough of us start to ask for better quality video games, then, you know, we'll get it. I mean, they're not going to sell anything if we won't buy it, but unfortunately, I think people will buy just about anything that says COD, even if it's primarily the same game year after year after year. So, yeah, I don't know. The expansion packs being announced on release, ugh, that stuff is just so frustrating. I think I just put an article up the other day that talked about it. Battlefield 3, I mean, I'm really skeptical about how great it's going to be. I'm going to buy it probably either way, because I'm really hopeful. I'm hopeful but skeptical. It's not due out until December of this year. It is currently May. We have around 7 months until it's released, and they've already announced an expansion pack for it that may or may not be available on release, but if you buy the limited edition of the game, then you get the expansion pack. That's insane to me. You know, if I was a game company, I would probably be planning expansion packs as well. But it seemed crazy that they're expecting they're already selling these before the game is out. Not even before the game is out, but like 7 months before it's even released. We haven't even heard anything of a demo. The only thing that we've seen about Battlefield 3 is a 12-minute trailer, but we know that it's going to have an expansion pack, and I can buy that already. I don't know. I don't like where games seem to be headed, and I think one of the ways to steer them a different direction is to talk about what makes a good video game good. And you get enough people on that bandwagon and you start getting better video games. So that's kind of like my end goal, so to speak. I love video games more than anything, and I love good video games more than I do bad. So it just kind of makes sense. For somewhat, I guess, anecdotal evidence too, like I mentioned it, I have quite a few friends who are devs with various companies, and many of them will rightly admit that the quality bar is set fairly low. One of my friends who's at Blizzard has said it a number of times that they can get away with all sorts of things because people will basically play, they're not going to play what's ever put in front of them, but I think video gamers can be slow to change their minds, and I don't know, it's kind of like anything. Like say the QWERTY keyboard, right? The keyboard that we all use every single day. We know for a fact that it's not the most efficient way of typing. In fact, the QWERTY keyboard was designed back in the day, was reverse engineered to slow people down because typewriters couldn't keep up with people. It was designed to slow people down. But the keys that you can most easily reach are keys that are not used the most often. And you know, people have figured out what keys in the English alphabet, you know, are used more often than the others, and they've designed keyboards around this, but it's never going to happen because we already use this one, right? It's the standard. I mean, no one's going to bother with it, even though we'd all be much faster, more proficient, all things being equal, with different keys and easier to reach places. Anyway, some of the things can be said for video games. It's not necessarily easy to make changes, even if those changes are going in the right direction. And I can't imagine that going in the direction that COD has been for the last 5 years is something that's going to take video gaming to a new level. I think what COD has done that's a really great job is they've managed to make video gaming much more accessible and attractive to people that it wasn't otherwise attractive to before. So anyway, I actually just ran a clip, so I had to add in another clip, so I didn't just end on that note. To be honest, I don't completely remember where I was going off. Some tirade about video games. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with games. I think I was saying something about how COD has brought in a bigger, wider, more attractive audience to games, which is fantastic. You know, gaming isn't just for the nerd bombers anymore. It's extremely common for Joe Schmo down the street and his best buddies to all play COD. But you know, unfortunately, that's, you know, with the good of making a wider audience, you also, like I said, not intentionally necessarily, but like I said, that skill potential is destroyed for everyone. Catering to the lowest common denominator is what brought the new audience in. But I don't think that games can stay like that forever. I'd like to think that they can't stay like that forever. I think eventually, if they did, they'll just blow themselves out. I think COD will eventually, that style of game will eventually implode on itself, but we may not see that day for quite some time. I really hope it's sooner than later. That being said, I have been playing zombies and it is good fun. But I really miss some great competitive, not even a great competitive game, because I just want something that, you know, someone who has the dedication and skill to excel at, can excel at, and consistently do well in. And there hasn't been a good title like that for quite some time. I'm really hoping BF3 will fill that missing void. I don't know that it necessarily will. I'm just getting my ass kicked all over here. This is ridiculous. Both these guys, after I blew their fucking legs off, just, you know, started tonguing my apple bag. So actually, God forbid, talk about Dead Space 2 for a moment here. That scenario right there is why at this stage in the game, and I think I sort of mentally decided to, well, you can decide for yourselves, that ammo be damned. I just need to start destroying things, shooting them from a distance. You know, who the fuck cares about how much ammo you have? So you take way too much damage, and then buying the ammo is cheaper than buying the health packs. I think, gosh, what is it, a couple thousand credits for 6 rounds in the plasma cutter. And one of those guys, I think, takes around 6 rounds, so it's a couple thousand credits to kill him. But that's not including ammo that you owe me an eye? What the fuck is that? Anyway, it's basically cheaper to buy ammo than it is to buy health packs. I think the full health pack is 10,000 credits, and the small health packs just don't do jack shit, so take that for what it's worth. Anyway, that's it for today. I think we'll probably end up with around 15 parts, and this is 12 if they all keep right around this length. I know I've been making my clips a little bit longer. If you guys want to let me know if you prefer the shorter or longer clips, feel free to do so. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to see the longer clips. I don't know, just less clicking on another link, I suppose, but they're only limited now by the actual video size as opposed to video length, so why not use most of that up? Anyway, until tomorrow,